Hello everyone. Today I'm going to present to you about BGP Zombies. And this is a joint work with my internship mentors at Cisco Thousand Eyes, Adonis Hariton, and Fotis Dimitropoulos. So first start with what BGP Zombies are, or as they're otherwise called, stack routes. Okay, yes. So as a network operator, when you are managing an AS and you own a prefix, you want everyone on the internet to know about it so that they can send traffic to you. In BGP, to do so, you generate a specific BGP update message with all the necessary reachability information for this specific prefix. And you will propagate this message to your AS neighbors based on your business relationships with them. And they, in turn, will propagate the announcement to their appropriate neighbors and so on and so forth until everyone on the internet knows how to reach your prefix. If for whatever reason, at some point, your prefix becomes unavailable, either by choice or because, for example, a link went down, okay, yeah, thank you. You generate another BGP update message called withdrawn. And this message should also propagate to the whole internet the same way that the announcement did, in order for everyone to now know that they can no longer reach your prefix. But the problem occurs when this withdrawal message gets lost. And this could happen due to various reasons. It could be network issues or software bugs on either side. But this inevitably will lead to a routing inconsistency. For example, here, the first two ASs have correctly removed the entry from the routing tables, but the third one still thinks that the prefix is reachable. And this can impact multiple ASs, especially if the third AS has downstream ASs, which will never learn about the withdrawn route. So why are BGP zombies a problem? Well, they can have multiple effects. For example, if you are under a DOS attack, you deploy a mitigation solution. For example, you send the traffic through your provider or using some different links. When the attack is over, you revert this mitigation technique. But if, for some reason, the routes get stuck somewhere on the internet, the traffic will still use these routes, and maybe the traffic will never reach your AS. Even worse, if you are paying for this mitigation solution and those links keep getting used, you will still get charged for using them, even though the mitigation is no longer actually in place. Another case is when you sell some of your IP space, and if your previous routes get stuck somewhere, the traffic, instead of reaching the new owner of the IP space, is directed towards your AS. So in general, BGP zombies can cause problems to your networks, both if your prefixes are stuck somewhere on the internet, and if there are stuck prefixes on yours or your upstream routers. And to be complete, we saw that the problem can occur when BGP withdrawal gets lost, and we still think that there is a valid path when actually it's no longer there. But it's equally likely that the BGP announcement gets lost, and we'll never learn about a new prefix or a new route. But this problem is much harder to detect because of the intricate and complex policies that are applied between ASs based on their business relationships. But as a network operator, you know that a lot of things can happen on the internet, so you have to pick your battles. So are BGP zombies such a big problem that you should at least be aware of? In order to answer this question, we first looked in the existing literature. The first paper to look into BGP zombies was published in PAM 2019, and it studied stack routes involving the RIPE beacons. The RIPE beacons are specific IPv4 and IPv6 prefixes that are periodically announced and withdrawn by the RIPE collectors to their peers. More specifically, every day, starting at midnight, the RIPE collectors will announce the beacons to their peers every 4 hours, and they will withdraw them 2 hours after its announcement. So the visibility of the RIPE beacons will look like a pulse train, as we saw here. So back to detecting BGP zombies, the most important parameter to define is after how long since the prefix withdrawal, we should consider a route as stuck. And the authors, in this case, picked a conservative threshold of 90 minutes to prevent falsely reporting as zombies any delayed withdrawals. So the authors executed the experiments over 3 different time periods of 1.5 to 2 months each. And they found more than 5,100 zombie outbreaks. This is an impressive result, so our first step was to repeat this analysis using the historical RIPER's BGP data in order to validate the paper's results. Surprisingly, we found 640 more zombie outbreaks, an increase of around 13%. So we wondered to ourselves where these discrepancies could be coming from. And actually, some part of them is due to the fact that inevitably we use different tools than the paper. Sorry. We use the historical BGP data from RIPERs to reconstruct a peer's RIB at any time point, whereas the authors were using the RIPER's looking glass to detect BGP zombies in real time, and then they later filtered out only the false positives using the raw BGP data. However, still, these discrepancies motivate us to improve our detection methodology in order to be able to more accurately tell apart a BGP zombie outbreak from a complete and successful withdrawal. And in this effort, we found that actually the RIPE collectors marked the beacon's announcements with some very valuable information. More specifically, they populate the BGP attribute aggregator IP address with this information, where the last 24 bits represent the number of seconds that have passed since the beginning of the month until the time of the announcement. And this helps us to uniquely identify the announcements of the beacons within the same month. And this is extremely useful because this prevents us from double counting all zombies. For example, if a prefix announced at 12 a.m. gets stuck on a router and remains there even after the new announcement at 4 a.m. and even after the withdrawal at 6 a.m., we shouldn't consider this as a zombie twice, but only once for the time interval that it was originally announced in. And indeed, after applying this additional filter, we observed a reduction of 33% in the total number of zombie outbreaks. We applied the same analysis as the paper did, and we found that 1/5 of the pairs PRAS and beacon prefix were not affected by BGP zombies at all. And also, as expected, over 90% of the time, the AS path of the stack route was not the best one originally chosen by the BGP selection algorithm, but instead it emerged during the path handling process after the prefix withdrawal. So, having revisited the study and already improved the detection methodology, we came up with some questions that would help us understand the BGP zombies problem more extensively. One such question was, how long can a zombie survive? Is it just a couple of hours, or could it be days or even weeks? And how does the zombie's visibility change over time? But answering these questions requires that a stack prefix is not announced again very soon, because then this new announcement will wipe out the stack route. And unfortunately, the RIPER's beacons provide us only with a short time interval of just 2 hours between the withdrawal of the prefix and the new announcement. So to address these challenges, we created our own BGP beacon methodology called BGP clock. In BGP clock, the beacon prefix includes in itself the time of the announcement. It is advertised every 15 minutes and gets withdrawn 15 minutes later, resulting in 96 different prefixes every day. Of course, as you can imagine, the beacon prefix in this case would be recycled every day. So after running the experiments for several days, we modified the prefix to also include the day of the announcement. So now it would be typically recycled every 15 days, allowing us to more extensively study the lifetime of a zombie route. Of course, following security best practices, we created a ROA on the RIPE portal for the /32 covering prefix in order to ensure that our BGP announcements are RPKI valid and can fully propagate on the internet without any problem. So, to announce the BGP clock beacons, we used Antoni's personal AS 210312, a highly interconnected AS with more than 1,700 1,700 neighbors, ensuring rapid and complete propagation of our BGP announcements. The motivation behind our own implementation of the BGP beacons was that with more prefixes that could survive longer before being wiped out by a new announcement, we could achieve more diversity and less noise about which prefixes get stuck on the internet. And indeed, we found cases of some very stubborn and impactful zombie outbreaks. The first one remained in the ribs of 6 PRASs even after 3 hours after the prefix withdrawal. And based on the AES paths of the stack routes, it seems that it was originally stuck in a French AES with more than 200 AESs in its customer cone. Hypothetically, all of these AESs could have been infected with the stack route, but we can only be sure about 6 of them which are connected to RIPE collectors. In this graph, we visualize this zombie outbreak using the AES paths of the stack routes in order to build the zombies AES graph. And in the red square, we highlight the AES that was the most probable cause of this zombie outbreak. And we determine this in the following way. Our AES graph starts as a single chain with the origin AES as the root. And then, at the square, it branches out to multiple subtrees whose leaves are the RIPE peers. So now, if an AES before the annotate one was causing the problem, then that AES's downstream customers would also have stack routes. So this branching out would have occurred earlier at that AES. Similarly, if an AES after the annotated one was causing the problem, then that would mean that somehow all these AESs at the same level miss the same withdrawal about the same prefix and at the same time. But we need to make clear that we're not here to point fingers at AESs. This problem is not necessarily coming from the highlighted AES. It could be that the previous one failed to propagate the withdrawal rate. Our goal here is to be able to understand where the problem could be lying in order to facilitate its resolution by the network operators. So we have 2 additional larger cases of BGP zombies. The first one seems to have come from a large German AES belonging to Core Backbone GmbH, with more than 2,000 AESs in its customer cone. And naturally, we observed more peers to have this stack route, namely 21. And finally, we observed that another German AES, with a few hundred AESs in its customer cone, caused another persistent and very long-lived zombie outbreak. So after we concluded our research experiments, which lasted about 1 month, we stopped all of the BGP advertisements, and followingly, we removed the ROA from the LIR portal. Surprisingly, the next day, Andonis received an email from RIPE about informing him that there were RPKI invalid BGP announcements involving his registered address space, and specifically the address space that was dedicated to our BGP Zombies experiments. And he kept getting the same email every day for at least 3.5 months since the conclusion of our experiments. So now it's been over 7 months, and our zombies are still there, alive on the internet. At the time of the creation of this presentation, there was at least one in RIPE, one in BGP.tools, and one in Hurricane Electric. And those that are no longer there, they had survived for at least 3 months. So what did we learn from all of these experiments? First of all, as expected, the zombie outbreaks decrease over time. But as you see here, there is a rapid decrease in the number of the zombie outbreaks for the first couple of hours, and then they reach a plateau and they stay there for hours or even days. Also, here we present 2 lines, and we should focus on the orange one, because during our analysis, we found 2 RIPE peer AESs, where the 10% of the beacon prefixes would get stuck. So in order to avoid any misinterpretations, we excluded these peer AESs from our analysis in the orange line. Finally, another very interesting point was that around 2 hours and 40 minutes since the prefix withdrawal, we saw that the stack routes started going up. So we investigated this odd behavior, and we saw that prefixes that had been withdrawn 10 minutes earlier reappeared again at this time point. So there was a new BGP announcement, probably forwarded by Telstra Global. So we cannot know what exactly happened there, but if configuration changed or a link that was down came back again, this could have caused a full routing table, including the stack route, to be sent over again. So the key takeaway here is that zombies can reinfect otherwise clean hosts, even through normal network operations. So we described the BGP zombies problem. We saw that it's unfortunately quite prevalent today. Is there any solution to it? Actually, yes, there is. First of all, there was a new RFC in 9687 called send-to-hold timer. It was published very recently, and essentially what it does is that if you think that your BGP session is misbehaving for a specified time interval, for example, you cannot send any BGP updates over it, you should simply reset the session. And that way, you can get rid of a very good amount of stack routes. Currently, no hardware vendor supports it, even though it has been implemented in software solutions such as FRR and OpenPGP. So it would be great and actually very useful for your ASs if you could ask support from your vendors for this specific RFC. Finally, on behalf of my mentor at Thousand Eyes, Adonis, I would like to present another tool against BGP zombies that is currently in progress, and it's called Stack Route Observatory. And this tool essentially utilizes the BGP clock as a long-term service. Through this tool, we will be able to understand the problem, its effects, and its causes better, and we'll be able to pinpoint at specific routers and models that could be creating BGP zombies. That way, with this information, you can go to your vendors and ask for a specific solution. It aims at providing open research data and also ASN-specific reports or alerts if we see that your AS is having like stack routes, or even worse, if your AS seems to be the one causing the stack routes. However, in order to be complete and to be able to study the IPv4 space as well, more IPv4 prefixes are needed. So if you have some IPv4 space to offer, even if it's fragmented, it could be extremely valuable for this purpose. And you should always remember that you can always get back your IPv4 space if you ever need it within 24 hours. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you all, and I will be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
It's fine.
Okay, it's good because I have four pages of viewers here, so hopefully I'll fit them in 11 minutes. Oh, there's a question. Good.
The first question is, did you remove the rower or invalidate it?
We removed it.
Removed
As far
it.
as I know, yes, we removed it.
So you're getting error messages about a rower that no longer exists,
No,
about
no,
a route that no longer exists. That's weird.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I guess what must have happened is that there was a covering row that invalidated these announcements.
Okay, that makes it clearer because, like I said,
No, I get it.
double not exists is weird. Secondly, I wonder, you're constructing artificially a zombie and then looking for them. You know, advertise, withdraw, advertise, withdraw. Isn't a signature of a zombie one that if you had, and this is the supposition, absolute visibility, you would see that route all the way to its origin AS? The zombie is missing the origin AS it's missing the route in the dumps closer to where it's supposedly originating. Is that helpful in looking at this problem from taking a single snapshot, or at least taking snapshots in multiple locations, trying to find how much is zombies. The reason why I kind of asked this question is, if any of you were attending RIPE meetings many years ago, Gert Doring used to come up with the State of the V6 report. And every single time he reported around 500 zombies, because the routing table was small enough that he knew every route. And there was this persistent collection of routes that just were not disappearing for years. And there was much speculation at the time about how could you automate that search. Have you looked down that sort of hole of seeing to what extent do they give you a signature, not by time, but by their AS path, that would point to this thing only exists in a partial path and has no trace back to its origin?
I think this could be answered by the AS graph that we showed, where we study the AS paths of the stack routes, and we expect that the zombie route occurred where we have the branching out. So before that AS and until the origin AS, we assume that all of the AS have correctly removed the withdrawn prefix. But still, yes, it would be very interesting to be able to track it down.
So we don't know.
Yes.
Fine.
Unless
there are approximately 999,942 routes in the IPv4 routing table. Let's take it as read. How many are zombies?
Yeah, we cannot name for.
We don't know.
We don't have the ground.
And it's actually a really fascinating question. If the answer's 10, I'm kind of so what, unless one of them's mine. If the answer's 100,000, I'm really, really interested in that number. And we don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, hi, Tony Tauber from Comcast. So the injection points, these ripe anchors, is that what you call them?
The ripe collectors.
Sorry, what?
The ripe collectors.
Ripe collectors, okay. How many of those rough order of magnitude are there and how distributed?
So they're like, I think, 18, like at most 20 ripe collectors.
Okay.
But like each one of them,
Okay. The number is at most 45. Okay. I'm just curious, like, how many are we talking? Okay.
yeah. But like each one, like each collector can announce more than one beacon prefixes. So it's not like tied to one relationship.
Right, but in terms of where they are distributed in the AS topology, there's...
Yeah, I think they are like deployed in various places around the globe.
Right.
Okay, of course, like the presence is more strong in Europe, of course.
Right, okay.
But yeah, like they have peers everywhere in the world.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Tony.
Excuse me. Hi, Nimrod Levy, AT&T. It looked like you got a pretty good sense of what routes were getting stuck in. Were you able to draw any correlations between the software and hardware stacks that those networks run? Are we looking at any potential bugs that we can point to in those platforms?
So I'm pretty sure people have reached out because other people have also been doing research around BGP Zombies, such as Ben Cox. So people have been able to already pinpoint specific routers and models. They have reached out to the vendors. As you know, vendors sometimes can be quite reluctant to fix things very quickly. But yeah, this is one of the reasons why Thousand Eyes is also trying to implement this new tool in order to automate this process and also accelerate it.
Great.
Thank you.
I just wanted to feign a little moral indignation on 2 points. I couldn't help but notice you've engaged in the practice of semantic cramming and IP address spacing for your date and time, and I just want to say, nice. You can never get enough of that. But also I wanted to ask, do you want a zombie apocalypse? Because this is clearly how you get a zombie apocalypse. I don't know if you've watched a lot of the movies, but it seems questionable to go out and literally create zombies and let them roam around the world and just.
I mean, ideally, we don't want any route to get stuck, right? We want everything to work perfectly, but yeah, unfortunately, we got a lot of them getting stuck. Yeah, our goal here was not to create problems on the internet, for sure.